I think 2025 is going to be one of the most interesting years. And I think we should all brace ourselves a little bit, get some popcorn, and let it roll over us.
Welcome back to the Wealthion Network and the show Speak Up, of which I am your host, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining us today, and will likely be a very more often than annually, but certainly annually, last year, the founder of the Wealthion Network and the chairman and the CEO of Gold Bullion International, and a dear friend, Stephen. I don't like to tell people how long we know each other because I'm lying about my, let me put it to you this way, with Wikipedia in play now, I really can't lie about my age, but I still like lying about my age. But if I was not lying about my age, I would tell people we know each other for just under 36 years. Sort of scary. But welcome back to the show. And this is a special edition show on predictions. So last year, 2024, I went over the predictions with Stephen this morning. We got a lot of things right. We'll send out an email to all the Wealthion people on some of the things that we predicted. And of course, we got some things wrong. We'll explain what went wrong for us. But this year, we've got predictions. Mr. Stephen Feldman, welcome to the show. 2025 is upon us. First question for you, is it going to be a good year, Stephen? Let me get under my desk while you're saying that. Is it?
Well, first, I just want to clarify that we met in kindergarten. I think 2025 is going to be one of the most interesting years. And I think we should all brace ourselves a little bit, get some popcorn, and let it roll over us. It is going to be a year of some really fundamental macro events coming in and intersecting in a way that I don't think we've seen in our adult lifetime. At the top of the list is we have a new president, but it's not just the president, it's what President Trump and others around the globe are ushering in. It's the shift from globalization to polarization. It's the shift from my brain to artificial intelligence. It's the shift from cars that drive to driverless cars. It's going to be the shift from markets that have been smooth sailing for 2 years, pretty much always up, by the dip, to I don't think that's going to be the story in 2025. And I think the collision of all of these things is going to lead to a lot more headlines than we're typically used to.
Well, I mean, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot going on. You have a president returning to the presidency. This is the first time since Grover Cleveland. So it's 140 years ago we had a president lose an election, come back to win a subsequent election. The president's team, I think, is more experienced. He certainly is more experienced, having spent 4 years as president. There was an article I was reading over the weekend that I will share with you briefly and then ask you to address. Gideon Rockman wrote an article in the FT over the weekend talking about a revisionist era, meaning we went from World War II to 2025, 80 years, where we did have a template of a structure of world order. There was a balance of powers, a Cold War. There's been tension, but there's been kinetic wars that have been skirmishes. There hasn't been a global world war, but 3 of the major superpowers now, China, Russia, and the United States, have what Gideon Rockman calls our revisionist leaders, where basically they're going to flip over the apple cart, Stephen, on things like tariffs, things on geopolitical positioning. Donald Trump has said during his transition term, it's the 12-week transition term, he's talked about taking over Panama Canal. He's talked about taking over Greenland. I guess he suggested that Canada would be the 51st state of the Union. And so is this just rhetoric that's out there, Stephen? Do you think the world order that started in 1945 holds? Or do you think that these leaders in 2025 are going to shake things up?
I think I think the leaders are shaking up what the population is allowing to get shooken up, if that's a word. Uh, Trump jests that Canada is going to be the 51st state, and I guarantee in some Canadian newspaper there's a poll that says that 47% of Canadians would like to be the 51st state. And these things get traction because there is is an impatience that I feel that many humans have with the disparities of wealth, the emotional reality that they didn't reach what they wanted to reach, or even worse, they reached a place, and between artificial intelligence, tax codes, bad labor agreements, that they're not getting what they were hoping for. And I think that's what's letting this all happen. Trump is not an authoritarian without permission. Whether he got 50%, 49%, I'm not sure the exact statistic, but a lot of humans voted for somebody who was going to throw the apple cart over. And I think, in the Russian population and the Chinese population, they have less ability to do so. But at the same time, you look at Europe, which has ostensibly the best democracies that people have seen. And in Germany, you've got an ultra right-wing Nazi-affiliated party knocking on the door of government with the support of Elon Musk. So I think a lot will happen. That's why my opening comments were, what I'm hoping for is that there's the resistance or some balance comes to keep things. What we've always enjoyed in America was things in check. People didn't vote so much because it didn't matter so much. It was very little difference. Carter died yesterday or the day before, and he was there really a massive difference between what Carter did and what Reagan did. It was almost imperceptible, except for the politics. But today, the difference between what Obama was doing and what Biden was doing and what Trump is doing is night and day. And all I'm saying is, with this much change, and it will happen, I don't know how much of it will happen, there's going to be quite a bit of chaotic, unintended consequences.
Are you concerned about your financial future or think your investments could be doing better? I'm Andrew Brill, one of the hosts here on Wealthion, and I've been there, not sure my money was in the right places. It's why I've gotten help from a financial advisor. Maybe it's time you think more about your financial future or get a second opinion about your investments. We've made that process easy. Simply go to wealthion.com/free to speak with one of Wealthion's registered investment advisors for a free, no obligation portfolio review. Again, that's wealthion.com/free. I'm now less anxious and confident I can achieve the financial goals I've set for me and my family.
Okay, so let's get into our predictions. Different categories just for our listenership here. We're going to talk economics, politics, a merger of the year, investing, technology. We've got some fun predictions in here. I want to start with the economy. Give us the Wealthion Speak Up prediction 2025. What's the economy going to look like? How is it going to shape up?
It's interesting in Wealthion generally how two things are always conflated, which is the economy and markets and investing. So markets, investing. I don't foresee anything miraculous happening in the economy in 2025. I think the setup is pretty good. Generally speaking, low employment, inflation coming down, although maybe a bit higher than what had been hoped for. But at the same time, you see some macro things that are troubling in different markets. So, for example, $8 trillion of treasuries have to roll over in 2025. What does that do to markets? All that money that's going to come out of some other wallet, right? If $8 trillion has to get refinanced and you can't rely on the Chinese to do it, then that's going to come out of other asset classes. It appears to me that the stock market is pretty, on historical basis is pretty highly valued. So you could see things happening in markets and the economy does just fine. And I think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to see a lot more volatility in investment markets, but the economy will just continue to muddle through on the back of some big capital expenditure spending, whether that's the federal government or AI or data centers. So I feel like the economy will be fine, but I think the investing horizon is going to be pretty rocky.
Okay, so Fed rate cuts. We got it right last year. Now we said there would be 3 rate cuts. It didn't look like it was going to happen in the middle of the year. People were saying, "Oh, no way is that going to happen?" But we did get it right. We got 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. Let's talk about Fed rate cuts for a second. What do you think is going to happen as it relates to Fed rate cuts?
I think I'll answer the question in a second, but I think the strange thing that happened, again, economy and markets, there were 3 rate cuts, and yet the long bond is higher. I don't think a lot of people predicted that. And I think that could happen again in 2025. And so I think inflation at 2% is probably gone. The new normal, as we predict, is going to be probably north of 3%, maybe exacerbated by tariffs. But I think this idea that we are protecting this terrific credit called the United States of America with $36 trillion of debt and nearing $2 trillion of a deficit, Doge or not, it's going to be a big deficit. I think that's the part which I'm more concerned about. It feels like 25 basis points once a quarter is tinkering, while having to reissue $8 trillion of debt is the thing that's going to move the bond market. And my suspicion is the surprise is going to be negative. And does that cause banks to fail and real estate to crumble if you see a 10-year at 5.5%, which is our prediction? I don't know. There always feels to me that there should be a day of reckoning, but yet it doesn't ever really seem to come. That could be because there's blending and extending and pretending, or that this economy is so dynamic that capital zips out and then it zips back in someplace else, and no one's even the wiser.
All right, so let's set that scene for viewers and listeners, though. If you have got $8 trillion rolling and rates are up, and the weighted average interest rate will probably go up about 60 or so basis points on the $35 trillion of debt, Stephen. So there's just additional burden. I guess when we reach an exponential moment where the interest rate payments, which are already more than the defense budget for the United States and are heading towards other things like Social Security and heading towards the Medicare disbursements and so forth. At what point does that signal to the market? So wait a minute, the U.S. is a little bit in trouble here. How are they going to afford all of this? They're basically borrowing 43 to 44 cents now on every dollar that they're spending. How is that going to be long-term sustainable?
When you introduced me, I'm also the owner of a precious metals business, and so part of my responsibility is to stay abreast of the macro markets. And when you talk about this situation, I get accused of being a doomsday person, but I sit here and I say, if all of the debt had to roll to today's rates, that would be another incremental $1 trillion of interest on top of the existing $1 trillion of interest. We have a government that is wholly committed to keeping taxes down. It's almost like political suicide to raise taxes. And so then I say to myself, well, when does it spiral out of control? What happens? Does it ever? Can it go from 36 to 46? Or do we have the wrong metric? Does debt as a percentage of GDP mean anything if you have a military that can just, if Denmark says no, can just take Greenland? Like, what are you going to do about it? I don't believe it. In my heart, it makes me nervous, and it makes me more conservative as an investor. I don't like the picture. But when I sit there and tell people I'm nervous, they say, but you don't understand the U.S. economy. It's so dynamic. Everything always has gotten solved. So this will get solved too. And I try to stay independent minded, but it makes me nervous. I don't see a mathematical solution to this. I don't know what Doge will do to cut, but unless you raise taxes, this thing could actually become a spiral. And you and I are old enough to remember when the bond market went on strike. Remember the bond vigilantes? Do they ever show up, or it just keeps going on? Does it matter if it's 36, 46, 56? Not sure it matters. And then
Yeah.
you get into modern monetary theory. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, so let me. I'll lay out both sides. So the one side is this debt spiral will be cataclysmic. It'll cost us our living standards as we have to monetize the debt. It becomes not unlike Argentina. Argentina is different because everything in the world is dollar denominated, and so they have even more pressure on them. The U.S. could theoretically print a $35 trillion coin and pay off all the debt, but that would just be devastating to inflation. It would be devastating to living standards for middle and lower income people. The other side of the argument is that we are in a dollar denominated world, and the U.S. can continue to slowly monetize its debt. You had 8% inflation 2 years ago, and so that's effectively wiping out 8% of the government's debt. And so we can continue to do this for another 10, 15 or so years. And you'll see the erosion. Like every empire, you'll see the erosion. So this does bring up a good question, because it's part of our predictions. As we go to politics, Stephen, let's talk about the Department of Governmental Efficiency and its plan to cut government expenditures. One thing that Elon Musk says that I totally agree with, and I think you agree too, but if you don't, please disagree, is that deficit spending is just unfunded tax liability. And so somebody's going to have to pay it off. You're either going to pay it off through inflation, where you monetize the debt and everybody gets weakened. Inflation is sort of this invisible tax, or you have a day of reckoning and you have some type of imposition of austerity. It's really one or the other. But when you're spending the money, it does get paid off through a form of taxation. Inflation, a silent, sort of comprehensive, very regressive tax, or something more meaningful. And so I guess the question is there really $2 trillion worth of expenses that could be cut from the federal government? If there isn't, what could Doge do? What's our prediction for Doge in 2025?
Well, let me go backwards before I go forwards. So, part of what I hear in this conversation always is, well, with inflation, the silver lining of inflation is that the debt will decrease, right? If you have 10% inflation, then the debt arguably is going down in real dollars by 10% in that year. But that also presupposes that investors are going to buy your bonds at negative interest rates. So the fallacy of that is that if investors want a positive real rate, then if you have 10% inflation, then a treasury bond should be selling for 12% or 13%. Now, that's the part of the market which never seems to wake up, but one day it might, and it's going to be surprising. Now let's go to Doge. You can look at the federal government and you can look at the budget. It's obviously there to see. You can go and see the federal budget, and I suppose you can decide that you're not going to buy F-35s. I think that's the manned plane that doesn't work that well, and they're very expensive, and you can save some money there. And that they'll call that $100 million off your defense budget. And then, and I always see these studies where, they're trying to figure out why mice are depressed. And so you can save $150,000 there. Getting to $1.8 trillion, which is about, sort of 30 to 50% of the federal receipts from taxes, is going to take a thing, right? So it's going to require something in Social Security, something in Medicare, Medicaid, massive defense cuts, infrastructure, all of the things that are near and dear to people's hearts. And so what are you going to cut? You're going to cut the farm bill? Well, the farmers voted for Trump last time I looked. And so, and all of this tension, and go back to the very beginning, why is everything changes, is because people are annoyed. And one way to make them more annoyed is to cut. Remember that joke, which is keep government out of my Social Security. That person who's getting Social Security or is a year away, you tell them they're now 5 years away. I mean, the chaos that this is going to sow in this country and among the populace is really, really tough. So I think, listen, there's not a person on the planet who is for government waste, and we know there's plenty of it. Is there 2 trillion of it? I doubt it. And I suspect when Musk and some of the Silicon Valley elite club starts to talk about Medicaid and Social Security, that's where Trump and Musk start to have the true falling out. It already started on the visa, and that I thought was lightweight. That's lightweight stuff, right? Hey, we want to get some engineers to come in, and all of a sudden, Steve Bannon and the MAGA world was, at their throats. Let's see what happens when you're cutting the farm bill and you're cutting Medicaid and you're cutting, Social Security.
Yeah, Stephen, that was lightweight. Bannon called Musk a globalist, a slave to the Chinese Communist Party. This is the lightweight stuff we're talking about, right?
Right. That's the undercard for this. That is the undercard of but the heavyweight battle is when you touch people's entitlements, which is the only way to save the money.
Okay. All right. Let's whip over to another prediction inside the world of politics. Is the January 6th participants, do they get pardoned by Donald Trump?
Unfortunately, yes.
They do, right? I mean, most of them do, right? I mean, because he's Donald Trump, he'll pardon enough for his base, and he'll leave a few that he doesn't pardon, and then he'll leave enough for everybody to say nonsense to each other.
Yeah, let's take a tangent for a second, a slightly political tangent, which is, it's not a political show, but given how politics and markets and emotions are all now so inextricably involved, this pardon thing is getting out of hand. And, I don't think it was intended to pardon family members and partisans. And if people are worried about having faith in government, this is really could be one of the worst things that you could possibly do. Trump pardoned his father-in-law and quite a few people who, really.
He's now the ambassador to France, the pardoned father-in-law.
Right. And they made the ambassador to France. And then Biden, who must have, not positive about all his capabilities, but certainly his political antenna could not have been further down by pardoning the worst murderers and rapists in the United States. Yeah. Which became 5 days of reading every story over and over about who was, He
went and met with the Pope, and the Pope told him to do it, so he did it. And he just at every moment he gives another opening for Donald Trump to do. Right.
He just gave him
Donald
permission.
Trump is capable of doing.
By the way, I want to be clear: they were not pardoned, but their death sentences were commuted to life.
Right? Exactly.
But of course, the Bannons of the world said they were all pardoned.
Right. Of course. Well, that's the misinformation game that we're all playing. So, all right. So we're gonna whip through a couple of these. So just a yes or no: does Greenland become part of the United States in 2025?
No.
Okay. Does the United States attack Panama? Yes or no?
Well, I think we did that once. No, we do not.
Okay. Does the country of Canada become annexed by the United States?
No, it does not.
All right, just check with you, Stephen. This is the Wealthion Speak Up reality check here. These are our predictions for this year.
This is what I would call field conditions. All right, this is my theory of field conditions. And Trump is a master of creating field conditions. He says outrageous things, provocative things. He throws hand grenades in rooms, and he sees what's possible. And if it's not possible, he either says he was joking. Right. Right. And, how could you have possibly taken me seriously? And he gets away with that. But sometimes all these provocations end up leading to something else. And if you say enough sort of out there things, then the less out there thing seems quite sane. Right. So this is what he's doing. And, no. but so he's not going to annex Panama, not going to attack Panama, but he basically created field conditions to have a different conversation about rates for the Panama Canal and Chinese involvement there.
All right, so you got some great ideas here. So we're going to whip through them because we've got to keep this a timely show. But this is a great M&A idea, so much so that we should probably be talking to our alums and our banking friends at Goldman on this. Give us your M&A prediction for the year.
Well, I when I was thinking about these, I was just going through the Mag 7, and each one of them is in everybody else's business. And so the biggest reason that big mergers don't happen is because there's some notion that they're anti-competitive. But Apple has Apple Music. And so it's hard to say that if Google or Alphabet has Spotify, they could say, well, you have less competition. Well, that's not true. Spotify still exists. It's owned by Alphabet, and Apple Music still exists. And people listen to music in other ways also. The radio still exists. And so I think you can make the argument that it's not anti-competitive. For Google, which already owns YouTube, so it already has the biggest video service, to add the podcast and the music. And I happen to know from being a Spotify customer myself that it's a fantastic business and fantastic business model. It's like Costco, right? You're there, all your stuff's there, and all your lists are there. And if they raise rates 10% a year, nobody goes anywhere. So I think there's a lot of synergy to YouTube. It's a lot more customers, and since also Google's on the edge of AI, the ability to meld all those things and give people their personal tastes is quite exquisite.
All right, and I think it literally is an awesome idea, and we're going to after the show's over, we're going to get involved here with somebody in M&A to pitch that idea to somebody. So, all right, let's go.
Let me buy the options first.
Yeah. All right. Well, we. And by the way, just so you know, if you did do that, it's not insider trading.
I have no inside information.
Right. Exactly. So that's the weird thing about our industry. All right. So let's go quickly to the longs of the year, companies of the year, and then let's go to some of the shorts of the year.
Okay. So, full disclosure, I own both of the companies that we're predicting as the companies of the year. So the first one is SoFi, and run by a former Goldman alum of mine. And I'm going to tell you a quick anecdote. GBI was looking to get some acquisition financing this year. And we it wasn't a very large dollar amount, but it was a very attractive deal, and it was a good deal for the banks. And we could not get a bulge bracket bank to give us a loan. It was like if the loan wasn't $500 million, they weren't listening to us. And I sort of feel like the bank, between private credit, which is taking over the lending business, and the fact that banks aren't even and they're not in the small and medium sized lending business, that all of a sudden the retail borrower, the retail bank customer is not as well served as it used to be. Enter SoFi, which is a bank, has all sorts of lending services, all sorts of transaction services, very good direct to consumer. Has the naming rights of the 49ers stadium, and is beginning to have the brand be well known. It's got a lot of velocity in all its businesses. I'm happy to say I bought it well under its current price, but I really feel like it's only hitting escape velocity now, and the macro is great. I do not believe that the average retail bank customer is being serviced so well by its local bank, and a lot of those banks also have their own problems. They don't want to make any more commercial loans. They don't want to make any more loans. These guys are a leader in student loans, other types of loans. I think it's a no-brainer.
All right, I like it. It's cheap. Next one.
So this one is a special situation, and QXO is a company that was founded by Brad Jacobs. Brad Jacobs is a serial entrepreneur, but not of Silicon Valley. It's very, very interesting. He's not a venture guy. He's a guy who does roll-ups of fragmented and what I would say boring industries. The most famous one was XPO. XPO rolled up logistics, people who dispatch trucks and other moving vehicles to move goods across the country. It ended up trading, I think it trades today at like 9 times book value. I had a friend who turned me on to Brad. I listened to a couple of his YouTube videos. He's a no nonsense, decent man who just has a cult of executives and investors who follow him around. He announced QXO, and when it did a reverse merger, and it was done at like $10 or $11, which I'm happy to say is my cost basis. And now it's at $15, give or take. They haven't bought anything yet. They've had a couple of deals. One deal was rejected. It was a public company. But I think when the guy gets to start to get some velocity, he buys companies, he makes them more efficient, he's adding artificial intelligence, he's got rock star executives. Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, is an investor for $500 million. He's on the board. I think the stars are lined up for this. And when the thing starts to print deals and get attention, I think the stocks are double between now and I think both these companies, markets aside, right? If markets go down 50%, these guys are not going to double. But if markets move the way just normal markets, I think both these companies are doubles in a year.
Okay. Let's go to the shorts.
Okay, so I want to start with you with the short, and I'm going to tie the short to crypto. So I know you're a big crypto purveyor, a fan, a pioneer. So, the one place which I didn't want to say is a short was, either, certainly meme coins. I'd say, there are coins that have to go down to zero. They're worthless, but, got caught up. But I'm not even going to put those down because people can't really be short them. But the question is, how much of this, the Bitcoin, the MicroStrategy, how much of that is it will it be corrected away? Does it go down? Or has Bitcoin reached escape velocity? So even before I get to the two I mentioned, is there some view that these things have gone too long? Is that there's too much smoke and mirrors now? Or it's just the new platform? 95,000 is now the new platform for the next year, which will be 130,000.
So, it's interesting. So I went to the Yale CEO conference about a week and a half ago, and these were all seasoned CEOs, Fortune 500 CEOs, some retired, some active. It would be unfair to list all the names, but names that you would know, Stephen. And they had this like little electronic switch, and there's a poll. They put up on the screen, is Bitcoin a meme coin? Is it just a meme coin? Meaning, completely worthless, just a trading token that people are trading. 65% of the respondents there, of course, I was there and I voted that it wasn't, but I'm just letting you know that 65% of the people that were there voted that it was. And so it begs the question. I'm either completely wrong and I've missed this thing and I don't understand it, and Bitcoin's a meme coin. As apropos to what you said, I believe that meme coins will trade to zero. Is Bitcoin a store of value or a meme coin? And so I believe that it's a store of value, and I wrote a book about it, and you were nice enough to attend my book party.
And read the book. Even nicer, I read the book.
Yeah, and obviously we put the book out on Wealthion and gave people a 30% discount if they want to buy the book. But my feeling is either that's a sign that we're incredibly early. That's a sign that these corporations are behind the curve, or it's a sign that I'm incredibly stupid and there's going to be a tsunami wave that wipes out crypto. So it's one or the other. And, I'm going to take the side that these guys don't understand it yet or not willing to accept it. And that these coins, these meme coins, I do believe are going to go to zero. But I don't think Bitcoin is a meme coin. I do think that the world is adopting it. And gold, as you know, it's 5,000 years old, but gold had to be adopted by the world's population
Yes.
as a store of value. There's uses for gold beyond just that, but it did have to start somewhere with that sort of acceptance.
Yeah, listen, it's a complex story. Um, it's troubling on the crypto side that some of the use cases are, less than savory, right? There's a lot of all ransomware is in, all of the terrorism, all of the when people lock up your computer, they're asking for Bitcoin. It's unfortunate that it has that. If you took that out, I think people would feel better about it. I agree. By the way, I agree it's a store of value, and I also agree that I thought the interesting thing that might have been the secondary question for the audience that was the 65 that said it was a meme coin. How many of them have a regret that they never bought any? I think that the believers are long Bitcoin, and the people who missed out and are FOMO'd, they almost wish it would fail so they can say, "I told you so."
Right. Well, that's
And
everything. People said that about Tesla. People said that about Amazon. Geez, I want Amazon to fail. Warren Buffett once said at the Allen and Company conference, "Can you believe that this internet bookseller is worth more than the storied Sears Roebuck?"
yeah.
But Sears Roebuck's wonderful portfolio property and all these hard assets, and so we can, even the smartest among us can get things wrong. But let's go to these two shorts.
Okay. So the
You've
first
got
short,
down shorting long dated U.S. Treasuries. We've built the case for that: elevated inflation, rising rates, and quantum computing.
I wouldn't touch a long bond coming up for this year, and there's a number of reasons. One, of course, is what we talked about is endemic inflation. When people start to understand that inflation can actually stay elevated, we'll see what happens with the tariffs. But I was an economics major, and tariffs have always been inflationary. And maybe it's the case that this is just a negotiating position. So we get something in return that's deflationary. But I think inflation is here to stay and is going to just get worse. And to your point about the government can't be too sad about it since they got $36 trillion that they need to pay off. Second piece of it is there's been an extraordinary issuance of, I was just in the FT yesterday, just an extraordinary amount of issuance of corporate debt that has occurred of late and is projected to happen in 2025 as companies refinance their pandemic era debt. Third, $8 trillion of U.S. debt has to turn over in a market that's being deglobalized. And so if you're sitting there and Trump is threatening Canada, do you also want to own their treasuries? If you're Canadian and if you're Chinese, they're about to get 100% tariffs, do you want to own their treasury? Now, Trump can go and make a deal and say, listen, you have to buy $2 trillion worth of these and we'll lower our tariffs. Maybe that's the deal he makes. But I'm pretty sure all bonds, our long dated bonds, are going to suffer next year. Can't, because of just the massive amount of issuance and the fact that real rates will require that. Second one. You want to go to the second one?
Yeah, let's go to quantum computing. Yep.
Okay. I'm just intrigued by this one. This one, when you're an investor, this has got to be like the luckiest thing that could ever happen to you. So the story of quantum computing, formerly known as Beverage Holdings Group, with trailing 12 months of revenue of $386,000 and a market cap of, by the way, this is only a few days old, 2.2 billion. I believe it's 2.3 billion or 4 billion today. So it's trading for 5,000 times revenue, has one customer in quantum computing and trying to exit the beverage business. Listen, I am all for emerging technologies and the fact that the stock market is turned into a public venture capital arm, right? Canada has had it forever. Canada has a venture exchange where companies like miners can go and raise capital and you're buying a lottery ticket. And the US capital markets are becoming the same thing. And that's fine. In fact, it could be good. But I don't think for the average investor, that they understand that yet. And so they can get their clock cleaned in these types of investments. Just a year ago, this company was trading at less than $100 million market cap. And so it's up, it's up 25x. I think the number might be meaningfully south of that. So if you were long a beverage company and you held it and you fell asleep for a few months, you're up 25x. It's pretty great. But I think this is going to be a very rocky road, and I don't see how quantum computing beverage company is going to beat Google.
Okay, well said. All right. The crypto story of the year is that India and Turkey adopt Bitcoin as part of their foreign reserves. But we likely will see a Bitcoin crash at some point in the 2025 period. Now, I don't know. Could it go to 180, crash to 140? Could it go to 100, crash to 60? Hard to know, but Bitcoin is a volatile asset. So if you believe in it long term, that's great, but shut off the computer. Don't look at it every fifth. There are two types of people, Stephen. There are those that look at Bitcoin every 15 seconds, and there are those that lie and say that they don't look at Bitcoin every 15 seconds, but actually do. But try not to look at it. Number 6, Ukraine and Russia. There's a fragile peace agreement there. Ukraine enters the EU, but it remains outside of NATO. And Putin, of course, gets to keep the lands he's already conquered. And he firms up his position as the leader of the Western resistance. Number 7, there is a long-term ceasefire that's eventually brokered between Hamas and Israel. And this will mean a reconstruction for Gaza. Aid will flow in there from Arab states and the West. And this normalization of efforts between Israel and Saudi Arabia will happen as a result of this peace deal. Those are 5, 6, and 7. Let's go to number 8, unless you have something to say about 5, 6, or 7.
Listen, these are somewhat easy predictions. Nothing. I mean, this is, sometimes I remember when you read some of the Byron Ween's predictions, they always had to be outrageous. These are not particularly outrageous. I think both of these scenarios are on their way. Wars are always unpredictable. And the coda to at least 6 and 7 is they'll be short-lived, meaning whatever peace that you get in these very volatile regions with very volatile combatants in the Middle East, you sprinkle in zealots and a lot of religion, and in Russia, one man who can decide the following day that he'd like a little piece of Romania. And then what is anybody going to do? So, these are going to be fragile pieces. There'll be a lot of victory laps that'll go around them, especially among the new administration. Look, we got peace. We did this. We did that. We reordered this. We reordered that. But I don't see it holding, because the world's no longer tied together in the same way it used to be.
All right, let's go to AI. Some great ideas here related to drug discovery, arts and entertainment, perhaps making decisions on the sports field, making decisions as an administrator of a city like a mayor. Tell us a little bit about potential job displacement.
Yeah.
And what do you think the future? What do you think 2025 yields for AI?
Listen, I think there's going to be a massive acceleration. I had this statistic in my head that probably everybody who knows and loves me hears way too much. The Wright brothers flew a plane, and then only 65 years later, we landed on the moon. And that was without the internet, computers, for the first 40 of those years, the first 45 of those years. And now we have artificial intelligence powered with quantum computers, and the speed of which AI is going to eat up the world is going to be startling to people. And, and the fact that AI right now, most people who are sitting in my seat, hey, I used ChatGPT to edit the predictions. I wrote them out and I said, hey, throw them in there and polish them up. And it was efficient for me. I didn't have to send it to anybody to do it, and God bless. But I also read in this weekend's newspaper, in the Wall Street Journal, that management jobs are beginning to disappear because the job of a manager, which was to find information from different underlings, is already being done by AI and computers. And that's only going to accelerate. And if you want to be a historian, which I know you are, Anthony, about how we came to a place where populism was so important and the sort of anxiety of the former factory towns, it was all around NAFTA. So NAFTA exported jobs to China and to Mexico, and there was no corresponding retraining of the people. They were supposed to all elevate, but guess what? They did not as many of them did as we'd hope, but there was no program in place to retrain the displaced factory worker. And now it's coming up the food chain. And that is going to be about as dangerous of a dynamic. And the people in Silicon Valley think it's awesome because they're going to get a lot richer. But when it's not like the country is going to get richer, it's just going to, like Amazon, Amazon just sucked all the stores off of Main Street. AI is going to start to suck the jobs out of companies, and those companies will get richer and the shareholders will get richer, but the people will be displaced. And I think that is going to be, by the end of 2025, that is going to be a giant, giant theme, and America's government better get its hands around it. By the way, as an aside, and this is not about macro, I'll just tell you a quick anecdote. I was in California this past week, and I used to be there a lot for my job, and I knew all the streets and the 405 and the 10 and Wilshire and Sunset. And now I have Waze and Garmin and all things in the car, and I have no sense of direction whatsoever. I have no idea. I got to look up to see which way the sun is and sets in which way it sets to figure out where I'm going. And I'm troubled that AI might do the same thing to our if we're going to start using it to write, are we going to not be able to have language? Are we going to start using it to manage? Are we not going to manage anymore? I mean, I'm not sure what the end game is, but in search of extra income, are we going to give away our soul? By the way, that is a public service announcement. I'm not sure the answer, but I do feel like there's going to be so many knock-on effects to the hyper use in AI and how AI evolves. But look, I put a list of things down on this page. It's going to impact everything. AI is going to write screenplays. It's going to generate avatars. It's going to be in positions. It's going to be the manager of a sports team. It's going to be the mayor of a city. It's just going to be fed information and provide answers to things. And people are going to be shocked, in my opinion, about the things it displaces.
Self-driving cars? Are we going to have self-driving taxi service sometime?
Another thing that's accelerating. So I was like I mentioned before, I was in LA. Waymo is operational in LA. They're all over the place. I can't tell you what the impact will be for Uber, but you download the app, you call the car shows up. You don't know, for better or for worse, there's a driver. Maybe you feel the driver makes you more safe. Some people think the driver makes you feel less safe. And these things are whizzing around. They drive at the speed limit. They stop. They do right on red. We saw it everywhere. And again, if you take my theory that, we're accelerating, technology is accelerating, I think by the end of the year, there'll be certain cities where it'll be a valid competitor to the Ubers and Lyfts of the world. And if you wait 5 more years, it's going to be, I don't even know why people will need. But then go back to my AI. If everything is driverless, if cars are driverless and trucks are driverless, somewhere around 1.5 million people in America make a living driving something. And what are you going to do with those people? They're going to be a tad angry.
All right. Let's go to the Super Bowl, my friend, the Super Bowl. And I will point out we did get it wrong last year.
Yes.
The Chiefs went back and won the Super Bowl. Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Well, by
the way, this is a Byron Wien prediction on your part. Okay, this is one of those. If we get it right, we'll be self-congratulating ourselves. Go ahead.
Well, I will say this: that every Chiefs game I watch, it does feel like the refs are on their side, so they have an unusual advantage. But I'm a Jet fan, which really you should all feel bad for me, really bad for me. And I watched a little bit of the game yesterday, and the Bills are just a super team. Josh Allen looks invincible, and I'm going to pick them for the Super Bowl. Now, the second best team that I've seen is the Detroit Lions, and the third best team I've seen is the Ravens. Any one of them can win, but I'm going to go with the Bills.
It's a big one because they were in the Super Bowl 4 times. You and I have been old enough to see all these Super Bowls. They've never won a Super Bowl, and that's a big one. And Josh Allen, of course, the Jets had a chance to draft Josh Allen. Of course, they did draft Mr. Darno, who's the starting quarterback on the 14-2 Vikings. And so I'll make a prediction that the Jets will not be in the playoffs in 2025. How's that?
Yeah, that's the safest bet.
All right. Here are 3 tongue-in-cheek, okay? Zuckerberg and Musk. The cage match actually happens?
Oh, wouldn't we all like to see it? We could just put everybody in there. Jake Paul, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. Don't we just want to see a few guys just deserve a whooping?
Listen, Elon's one of the smartest people in the world, but don't you think Zuckerberg, who's 15 years younger than him, would beat the hell out of him?
It wouldn't be close. And plus, he's got the whole jiu-jitsu thing.
Right, exactly. He's like the Vladimir Putin of like social media. Okay.
This is a kid who used to get thrown in the locker in high school,
I see him as a tough guy now. Him and Bezos have muscled up, man. These billionaires on steroids, right? Okay. McDonald's launches an AI drive-through bots. So how does that work?
This is true. This is no longer tongue-in-cheek, even since we wrote this. Already robots are flipping burgers. And so now you're going to have a robot take your order, hand you the stuff, flirt with you. And if you do it 3 times with the same credit card, they're going to say hello through facial recognition. Hi, Steven. I know you like the Big Mac. So, and you're looking pretty good today, but you need to shave.
All right. Taylor Swift. This is a big one. I love this one.
This is going to happen. I'm telling you, you can't go from making $2 billion in a year, to nothing. So she's going to see what happened with Wicked, right? So now Wicked is the biggest movie. So she's going to do a show on Broadway. She's going to be in a few of them in herself. It's going to have her song catalog. And then she's going to star in the movie when the movie gets made of the show. And she is going to make another 3. It'll be bigger than Hamilton and Wicked combined.
All right. And so you think she's going to drop her tour.
It's over. Tour's over.
Sexy husband, Mr. Kelsey, and she's going to go to Broadway.
I'm telling you, Anthony, the tour is over, first. Second, she's not going to do the show every time, just enough to get it some heat. And
I'm going to do my best to pitch
$multi-billion franchise.
I'm going to do my best to pitch the Google Spotify merger talks and the Taylor Swift, the Swiftie revolution on Broadway.
You got to admit, these are 2 good ideas.
I like them. Look, I like them. Stephen, my friend, Happy New Year to you. You're going to have to come on. You have to come on before our 6-month checkup, though, so we can talk more macroeconomics. And I want to get into it with you, why you started a gold business, which is flourishing, by the way. Congratulations on that. Gold reaching its all-time high this year. But why you started it, what went into it. And I want to talk about the ups and downs of that as well, because I think it's helpful to people. As you and I both know, long-term investors have ups and downs. And it's how they ride those downs that make them actually successful investors. So we'll follow up in January to discuss that.
I look forward to it, Anthony.
All right, guys, that's it for us today. Happy New Year. We will be posting an evaluation of our 2024 predictions, what we got right, what we got wrong. We'll be posting our 2025 predictions, enhanced and edited by ChatGPT. And then you can hold us accountable for next year. Until our next episode, guys, have a great holiday and on to 2025. May it be a healthy, successful, and prosperous one for all of you.
That's a wrap on another discussion here on Wealthion. Thank you for joining us. If you need help being financially resilient, please head over to wealthion.com and sign up for a free, no obligation portfolio review with one of our registered investment advisors. And remember to follow us on social media for the latest news and information to help you invest wisely. And if you could like and subscribe to the channel, we'd greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can find out when we post new videos to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay informed, be empowered, and may your investments flourish. And if you like this content, please watch this video next.